In the heart of Africa, where the sun blazes over the savannah, and the rhythms of drums echo through the villages, there existed a small town. This town, though modest in size, was known for one thing: Veronica's restaurant. The air around it was always filled with a tantalizing aroma of sizzling meats, fresh spices, and stews that made your mouth water. It was a place that attracted both the wealthy and the humble, the curious traveler, and the regular townsfolk alike. The tale of Veronica's rise to prominence, however, was one that no one truly knew. They all spoke of her as a hardworking woman who had built the business from the ground up. But no one asked how, and no one questioned the strange energy that surrounded her restaurant. Veronica had grown up in a small village, far from the bustling town. Her mother was a herbalist, and her father, a renowned hunter. Veronica was raised in a home that was steeped in the traditions of old Africa, where spirituality and ancestral wisdom intertwined with everyday life. It was from her mother that she had learned the ways of potions, charms, and remedies made from herbs and roots. But Veronica was not content with living the simple life. She wanted more. As Veronica became older, she began to feel that she could take the knowledge from her mother's herbs and the lessons from her father's hunting and create something more. She left the village with a dream: to open a restaurant that would not just serve food, but also provide a sense of spiritual connection. But there was something dark lacking in her ambition. Veronica's desire for success was so intense that it led her to seek out knowledge beyond the traditional ways of her ancestors. She met a mysterious stranger who promised to teach her the secrets of unlocking her restaurant's power. The stranger's name was Olimo, an old man who was said to have lived for centuries. His skin was dark as night, and his eyes glimmered with a strange knowledge of the world. He gave Veronica a warning, though. He told her, "The path you seek may lead to great power, but it will also bring great cost. You will have to sacrifice much for the success you crave. And if you choose to proceed, you will never be able to go back." But Veronica, driven by ambition, ignored his warning and took the stranger's offer. The next day, he gave her an ancient talisman, a dark crystal infused with magic, and told her that it would grant her the power to make anyone who ate her food fall under her spell. All she needed was to use a special ingredient, a secret, unspoken one, to truly seal her success. With her newfound knowledge, Veronica opened her restaurant, and almost overnight, it became the talk of the town. The food was unlike anything anyone had ever tasted, and the people couldn't get enough. Her dishes made people return time and time again, but what they didn't know was that with every bite, they were unknowingly falling under her control. It was the talisman's power working through her food. In this segment, we could include interactions with other restaurant owners and townsfolk, showing their jealousy and wonder at Veronica's success. In the shadows of this growing success stood Veronica's daughter, Juliet. A young woman with a heart that was pure, and a spirit that was strong in her faith. She was the opposite of her mother in many ways. Where Veronica was cunning and ambitious, Juliet was honest and devout. She was raised with the teachings of the Bible and had always been taught to avoid the ways of darkness. Juliet had grown increasingly uncomfortable with the success of her mother's restaurant. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unnatural about it. As people around her praised the food and begged for recipes, Juliet's suspicions deepened. Juliet had heard the rumors. Whispers of the restaurant's success being too good to be true. "It's as if her food has a spell on it," the townsfolk would say. But she had never taken them seriously, until one fateful evening when she decided to go into the kitchen and observe her mother herself. She slipped quietly through the back door, her heart racing with anticipation. In the dim light of the kitchen, she watched as her mother prepared the food for the evening's feast. Veronica stirred a large pot with a wooden spoon, and Juliet leaned in closer, her eyes widening in disbelief as she saw what her mother was doing. Veronica had taken an old pair of pants, stained with menstrual blood, and placed them into the soup, stirring them carefully as if this was part of a regular process. The room seemed to close in on Juliet. She had never seen anything so horrific. The blood from the pants, combined with the herbs and spices, formed the dark magic that bound her mother's food to the will of the people who consumed it. Juliet couldn't remain silent any longer. Her voice trembled with fear as she confronted her mother. "Why, mother? Why are you doing this? This is wrong." Veronica looked up, her eyes cold and calculating. You don't understand, Juliet. This is the price of success. It's the only way to ensure that the food will bring people to my door. This is my secret ingredient. The truth had been exposed, and the town was in shock. How could they have eaten such food? How could they have unknowingly been part of such dark magic? Juliet was determined to put an end to her mother's reign. She took her story to the town elders, wise men and women who had been the guiding voices of the community for decades. They listened in stunned silence as Juliet explained the terrible secret. The elders were horrified. They had always known that there was something strange about Veronica's rise, but they had never imagined that the success had been built on such evil. The town elders summoned the community together, and in a grand assembly, they declared Veronica's actions an abomination. Veronica's once thriving restaurant was shut down. Word spread like wildfire, and the townsfolk, who had once adored her, turned their backs on her. She was no longer the successful businesswoman who had charmed them with her food, she was the embodiment of their betrayal. In the streets, whispers of her deeds filled the air. Some were furious, while others were devastated. But all were united in the realization that they had been deceived. Veronica tried to fight back, but the power she had once held over the town had evaporated. She was no longer untouchable. As Veronica was driven from the town, her wealth, her power, and her business all crumbled. With nothing left, she wandered the wilderness, but the darkness inside her consumed her. She had made a pact with forces beyond understanding, and now she was lost in the void, never to return. Meanwhile, Juliet returned to her roots, her faith strengthened by the courage she had shown. The town began to heal, and slowly, businesses reopened, each one dedicated to serving the people with honesty and integrity. The story of Veronica became a cautionary tale. The townsfolk would never again take the allure of success at face value. They had learned that true success came from hard work, honesty, and faith in God, not from dark forces or deceit. In the end, Juliet's bravery had saved the town from the depth of darkness. Veronica's quest for power had come at a terrible price, and she was left with nothing but regret. But for the town, the lesson was clear, that integrity and righteousness would always triumph over darkness.